G'day folks, Scott here. Today I am reviewing War for the Planet of the Apes. This movie was directed by Matt Reeves, who did the previous movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm pretty invested in this franchise. I really enjoyed the first one, Rise, I enjoyed the second one, Dawn, and I was very anticipating this third one, War. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the original movies. Like, my thing is, if you are invested in the first two movies in this franchise and you're specifically invested in Caesar as a character, then you should be just automatically seeing this movie. I hope for your sake you haven't seen any trailers for this. As always, I was 100% synopsis free. I didn't know anything about this movie. I'd seen no trailers. I'd seen a poster, and when I was sitting in the cinema last night and I was looking around on Facebook just waiting for the ads and things to finish, a friend of mine, said on a post how much he was looking forward to the fact that Woody Harrelson was in it. I didn't even know that. Not a big deal. Like, knowing the cast doesn't fuss me one way or the other, but this is a level to which I've been avoiding movies, especially ones that I'm looking forward to. So if you're 100% everything free on this movie like I was, then just go see it, If you're not, then I'll go into details a little bit. I'll stick to just trailers. This will be spoiler free. Look, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it. I liked it more than I didn't like it. I'd probably put it on a par with the second movie, Dawn, probably for different reasons. Like, there were elements to it I really enjoyed. There were elements to it that I didn't enjoy, just like with the previous movie. I guess that comes down to writing. Matt Reeves is a great director. Like, I really enjoyed the cinematography and the way it was shot and the choice of camera angles and all that kind of stuff. That's just the same with the previous movie. My issue was decisions made in the writing process and story elements in it that just didn't gel for me. I saw it last night. I slept on it overnight before I did the review, and I've woken up this morning with, some issues that, perhaps I may not have had I've reviewed it as soon as I got home from the cinema. But I'm not turning you off this. If you've enjoyed the other two, you're going to enjoy this one. For me, the big thing about this franchise is Caesar. Caesar has been a incredibly well-handled character. Obviously, Andy Serkis has done an amazing job, as he does with all his motion capture and, computer-generated character acting. And I'm just completely invested in Caesar. What I loved was the story arc of Caesar going from Rise through to this movie, and I also enjoyed the story arc of his two primary companions being Maurice and Rocket, also of whom have come from the first movie and have seen their way right through the story up until this new film. And the three of them, every time they were on screen together, I really enjoyed it. Even if they were on screen separately from one another, I really enjoyed it. Those three apes specifically were really well done, and I really enjoyed their arc and how that transferred into this film. The one thing I'll give this film over the previous one is its human character was probably more interesting. I think the previous movie spent too much time with the humans, and the problem with it spending so much time with the humans is that they were all pretty poorly developed and weren't particularly interesting. Gary Oldman was about the only really interesting character in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And he perhaps wasn't used to the fullest potential that character could have had. In this one, unlike the previous movie where we're jumping between ape society and human society and sort of building to the climax where those two societies really clashed, this is really about the apes. The only time the humans became involved in it was when the apes were directly involved in why the humans were involved in it. But primarily your main character, I guess, from the human side of this in this movie would be Woody Harrelson's character, who is the Colonel. Again, this is all sort of set up from the previous movie and in the trailer, so I'm not really spoiling anything here, but the previous movie ended with them sending out a radio distress call from the city when they were having their war with the apes. And they reached a military base. And Woody Harrelson's character, the Colonel, is the military guy and his team who have sort of come and basically hunting and wanted to obliterate the ape society. So this is a movie set around the apes having to transition from point A to point B, trying to find a safe place to live and a place to live unbothered by men. Caesar has the same mentality he had in the previous movie, where it's just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone kind of thing, but of course that's not good enough for humans. There's a lot of story elements to that I won't ruin, but Woody Harrelson's character is set up to be this really intense, bad, no negotiating, just driven man. whose primary goal was to kill Caesar, to eradicate all the apes and to get rid of their leader, this one who had led them to rise up. And when it finally comes to the chance where he can do that, he repeatedly doesn't go through with it. I mean, there's even a point in this where there's this cliche James Bond villain-esque kind of thing where instead of just like, oh, here's the guy I've been chasing for years and I want dead, I'm going to bring him up to my room and I'm going to tell him my whole plot and break down the whole story for him and give him all this exposition to explain everything. And although that exposition was important because for us as the film viewer, it gave us some story elements too there that were actually pretty interesting and all, it weakened him as a character for me because his primary goal had been to achieve a thing, and when he got the point to where he could actually achieve it, he repeatedly didn't do it, and I found that kind of sloppy storytelling and a little frustrating. But I'm not trying to turn you off it. So here's everything they got right. Like I said before, it's beautifully shot. Camera angles are great. The computer effects are outstanding. They've been great the whole way through, but they've just gotten better and better. There were shots in this, especially with Caesar and Maurice, where there were big face close-ups where the articulation and emotion and range of expression were just so incredible. Specifically in a scene with Maurice, which I won't ruin, where his range of emotion that he was trying to convey was so well done, it was ridiculous. Caesar was fantastic as always. Rocket was great. There were scenes where Caesar, he'd taken a bit of a beating and he had a bloodshot eye, and the CG and just the range of emotion they can capture from that is, quite frankly, astounding. What I found kind of jarring was that they can make these creatures so believable and their emotions so believable that I'm so invested in them as a character, yet I can support a computer-generated helicopter from like 5 fucking miles away, and all this whole thing of CG choppers was just really jarringly noticeable, and I found that to be like, okay, we've invested all that time in the apes, let's just get those choppers done. As with the previous ones, your primary apes were definitely better done than all the other apes in the movie, but as a general thing, they were quite frankly amazing, and I'm glad I saw it. I feel a little bit like this was just done to finish the franchise up. I think that the story arc from 1 into 2 and 2 into 3 was really interesting, but 3 maybe just existed to wrap up the story arc that number 2 created. The story wasn't amazing, but I did enjoy it. So I don't really have that much more to say about it. Like, I don't want to go full spoiler territory on it. Like I said, if you're invested in this franchise and you enjoy at least Caesar as a character, then you owe it to yourself to see this through and to wrap everything up and all. Andy Serkis, as always, just deserves so much praise for the effort he puts into the role. Another tiny gripe really quickly would be that maybe he spoke too much English in this. All the scenes where he was with the apes, and the apes had really set up this thing where they were mostly using sign language with one another and very few of them spoke. Caesar's entire role was really just spoken to these apes, and I guess that's because the movie spent so much time more with the apes than it did with the people, that the studio were probably like, we need him to speak more, people don't like to read subtitles. And I found that maybe a little bit disappointing, but it was fine. Like, there's certainly worse movies out there. You deserve it to see this franchise through, so go and see it. I'll be back next week to review Atomic Blonde, which I've been expecting to be a giant piece of shit, but it's been getting some pretty fair reviews from overseas, so hopefully I'm wrong. I'd like to be surprised and actually see something that I expect to suck, then actually end up enjoying it. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.